welcome back to the show, everyone. Today is episode number 66. I think technically it's 67, but we lost one last week, so we got to redo that. But just want to welcome everyone to the podcast. So this is Pest Control Millionaire. This is where we give you, tactics and ideas and strategies that you guys can create your own pest empire and make millions of dollars doing this. We have some studs on the show today that I want to introduce, and we're going to switch it up today. We talk about pest control, seems like all the time, and we're just going to go start a new show, do a little bit a different avenue for you wildlife guys. So we feel like there is something missing on the wildlife side, so we want to pick up kind of where people were leaving the spot open for. So today we have two great guests. We have Shane on here, Dietrich. He's actually going to co-host the show for us today. So welcome, Shane.
Thank you, Jonas.
And then we have jack.searls here with us today too, and he is from AAC Distributing, who is probably one of the larger wildlife companies in the country, if not the biggest one for distributing products. So, Jack, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jonas. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun one. This is our first time doing three guys on here at once. So, see how it goes. Shane, why don't you just do a quick introduction about you, yourself, and your background, and then introduce Jack, and then you can just take over from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jonas. My name is Shane Dietrich. I own a couple of critter control franchises in Michigan as well as Northern Indiana. On here today, we've got Jack. He's been a great friend of mine since I worked for a critter control before starting my own. I met him at, I think it was a BAT standards course for NACOA that they hosted at AAC Distributing. Man, going on 6 or 7 years ago now. So Jack's been a great a friend to me. He's kind of walked me through a bunch of things. He's showed me a lot of great products that his company has to offer. And with that, I'll introduce Jack. Why don't you kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about what company you're with and how you got involved maybe into the wildlife industry.
Yeah, take us way back, Jack, like way, way back. I heard there's stories, Jack, that you actually owned a wildlife company. And I was like, well, that's news to me right there. I'm learning something already. So take us way back.
I'll start with where we're at today, and then I'll go backwards to the beginning. So
I like it.
Like Shane mentioned, I do work for AAC Distributing. We're a small company as far as the number of employees that we have. We try to run super efficient. So there's not a lot of us here. I mean, we're a company that employs 9 people full time, 3 to 5 people part time in the warehouse, depending upon the time of year. We focus on product development and distribution. So I started in the wildlife control industry in 2006 as a technician for our parent company, which was American Animal Control. That's the AAC, and AAC Distributing is short for American Animal Control. So from 2006 to 2020, I was a full-time technician. So I was out in the field, virtually every day. We started the distribution side in 2017. So from 2017 to 2020, I worked full-time on both sides of the company, which was a little rough for a couple of years, but we managed to get through it. But, if we want to go, however far back you want to go with it, my experience in wildlife started in 1984, I guess, as a 4-year-old running traps on a ditch with my dad is kind of where I started getting my feet wet with wildlife. Obviously what we do in the nuisance side is a lot different than what ditch trapping is or what fur trapping is. But, fast forward through my early childhood when fur prices were good. And that's kind of what I did was I ran a fur line with my dad, mostly running raccoons, beavers, muskrats, and mink was kind of what we did. We didn't get a whole lot into canines. Fast forward up through school, and I ended up going to college for elementary education with an endorsement in special ed, which I jokingly say that, the special ed probably helps me more with our industry than what anything else does, especially when you deal with people like Shane on a regular basis. That's where my roots in what we do really comes from my educational background. I mean, one of our big driving forces here at work is the educational side of things. It's trying to make sure that, not only are we delivering high quality products, but what we really want to do is we really want to work hand in hand with our customer base and make sure that we're offering them more than just plug and play products. I mean, we want to make sure that, just like Shane mentioned, we want to make sure that we're helping anybody from new operators who are just getting into it to, highly seasoned companies be successful. And our goal is to make sure that every single customer that works with us is more successful because of working with us than what they were beforehand.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a couple of questions that I wrote down for you already.
Yeah, all right.
First off, I'll start off by saying I met Jack last year at a conference down in Florida. He sat right behind me. You just got to talking, chatting. We didn't really do a whole lot or any wildlife at that time. And so we slowly started adding it. And then Jack actually came up to Appleton and did a day training with all of our guys. So I know I didn't get to stay very long, but I just want to say thank you for doing that. And when you said you genuinely want to help, that's exactly what you guys did. You guys came in for half a day or a day, whatever it was, and you just showed us how to use the products. You taught us what the products do, and obviously the cost, and then how to sell them and things like that. But why did you guys start the distributing side of it? What was the idea there?
The idea was never to start a distribution company, Jonas. That was the furthest thing from our mind at all. I mean, we didn't go into it with that thought process in any way, shape, or form. So RidgeGuard was the first product that we came to market with, and it was the first product that we developed. But the idea behind it had nothing to do with moving this direction. So like I said, we were an operating wildlife company with, I think, 14 technicians at the time. And the way that we used to address problems with the ridge vent was to pull the ridge vent off, lay down a 1/4-inch hardware cloth, put new ridge vent back on, put cap shingles back on, magnet bar the yard to make sure you don't leave any roofing nails laying there. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was time consuming. It was always in the hottest part of the summer. I mean, the job just sucked doing it that way. So when Tony finally had a chance to come off the road, Tony was, he's the owner of the company. And when he finally had a chance to come off the road, the first thing that he started working on was developing a better way to solve the problem on ridge vents. And so it's funny, we had kind of bounced some ideas back and forth off each other. And my wife and I had pulled into a Menards parking lot here local to us. And when we pulled in, I saw Tony's truck parked there. And just being the way that I am, the spot right beside him was open. So I pulled in where my mirror was almost touching his passenger side mirror, knowing that him and Randy, his wife, and the one that was really the boss here, Tony claims to be, but Randy's the one that's the boss. And my wife and I actually sat in the truck and waited for them to come out. And you weren't getting that passenger door open. I mean, I parked as close as I could to it just to see what their reaction was. And so Tony comes walking out carrying boxes of gutter guard. And they get up by the truck and finally I hop out. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why do you have cheap gutter guard? He's like, oh, this is the solution for our ridge vent. No, you can't read the box. That's for gutters. And so we kind of started bouncing the idea off each other. And I mean, the way that it all panned out was myself and another technician started selling the product on the job. And we started through the research and development side of it and the prototyping side of it by basically selling these jobs that had the ridge vent exclusion included on it. And then Tony would come up with a couple different forms of the product, just breaking it by hand in a little shop that was, I mean, the office I'm sitting in right now is bigger than where it started. But he started hand breaking it. He would break 2 or 3 different styles. And then myself and the technician, we would take it to the job. We would install it. The nice thing about the original material, I would never recommend using that gutter guard. Super flimsy, super, super flimsy. But the nice part about that was we could manipulate it by hand on the roof. So we could fashion these pieces to fit the way they needed to just by hand. And then once we picked which one we were going to install, we would install that on that job. We would take that back to Tony and we would say, hey, this worked best on this job. So the next one that we sell, let's use this, but let's keep going with a couple other, kind of designs until we finally got on the idea of what we currently have, which is a super simple product. I mean, it's 3 faces, 2 angles. There's nothing complicated about it. But it took us a while to get the angles right because we didn't want to have to use screws on the top. And so, the technician and I, that was the thing that took the longest, was knowing what the angles had to be to make sure that it would function the way that it functioned. And then I still remember it fairly well. Tony called me the one night and he's like, hey, we got a problem. So what's the problem? He said, the problem is I bought the material from all of the Menards, Lowe's, and Home Depots within driving distance. I said, well, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. I sell it, you make it, we install it.
There was no we. We didn't have a problem. You had a problem, Tony.
We were still selling it. The problem was on his end. It was up to him to figure out how he was going to keep making it. And he asked me then, he said, well, do you think there would be any interest in the market for it? I said, well, I mean, if it's working for us, certainly it'll work for others. And so we kind of made the decision at that point in time that we needed to start looking for a manufacturer for it. And if we were going to look for a manufacturer, it only made sense to offer it to the market because the more of it we could make, the more affordable it could be produced for. And that was honestly where it started. I mean, it started as a better solution for our techs in the field was where it started. And then it got to the point where we were selling so much of it that we were running out of product. And so at that point in time, we decided, well, if it's working for our company, then let's introduce it to the rest of the wildlife industry and see, is this something that we're just crazy for doing, or is it something that will actually help the industry? And I mean, it just blew up. I mean, the first year, I don't remember exactly how much we did the first year. I guess I honestly have it pulled up. I keep all my numbers right here on the computer. So on year one, I think we sold the first full year. We sold looks like 1,826 tubes is what we sold in 2017. And just to give you some reference for where we've gotten to since then, I mean, we had 2 months last year that we sold more than what we sold in all of 2017. So last year we were quite a bit higher than prior years. So yeah, I mean, it's been a huge success. I mean, from that, we took the base material that we absolutely love because of all of the different animals that it'll keep out. And we simply started rolling that into other products that we felt were kind of lacking in some areas, roof vents, for example, or power fan vent covers. When we started, there wasn't a power fan vent or a static roof vent cover on the market that we could put a warranty on against bad entry, because all of them that were on the market had expanded metal or welded wire that was just too wide. And so we just simply took that base material that will keep out everything that it needs to keep out, and we just started rolling it into other products. And that's kind of been, that's how it grew through the roof vent covers. And then we started looking at foundation vents and what we thought were kind of weaknesses in foundation vents. And that's just kind of how the process has been for us. And that's, we're going to continue to try to make innovations in the market for exclusion work that's plug and play, that is solving problems that we feel are weak in the market right now. So, we've got some other products on the horizon right now that we think will do really well. 2 products in particular that I'm super excited for. Tony and I are both in the same boat. We're both people who, when we start the ball rolling, we want it going. And it's been a learning curve on manufacturing and product development. It's not something that happens fast. I mean, we've had a couple of different products now in the making for 18 plus months. And it's just one of those things that no matter how fast we want to go, we can't make other people go any faster than what they can. And so it's an uphill battle at times because of our personalities, because both Tony and I mean, we've got products that we want to bring to market a year ago that we're still, slowly working on getting everything right on it. And that's the other thing, is that we won't come to market with something that's not 100% right in our opinion, 100% functioning the way that we want it to function with the ease of install. And that's the big thing, is we want products that you don't have to train your technicians how to build a house to install the products. We want it to be something that just about anybody can be taught how to do it in a few minutes.
Absolutely. I'll tell you that, Jack, that I'm excited to hear what products are coming next on the market for AAC, because I use a ton of AAC's products, and they're exactly as you advertise. They're plug and play. They're manufactured properly. I don't have any issues with them, and the value that I can build in those products to my customers far exceeds the amount that I'm getting charged to get them from you guys. So, will we have a sneak peek tomorrow?
I don't have any pictures. I would be more than happy to share with you guys what's coming. That I've got no problem doing. I'm just not going to do it on something that's recorded with a date. So, I still have to answer to the people that tell me that I can't tell people. So if it's recorded, I can't say it.
I agree. I was just giving you a hard time. Question for you again, and then I'll let Shane take over. But what happened to the AA company, or your pest control company? We had 14 technicians. Did you guys end up selling that?
Yeah, we did. So we were, there's everybody in the wildlife control industry, or at least a lot of the people who are very active in it, are familiar with Plunkett's and Varmint Guard. Varmint Guard has been doing acquisitions now for a few years. We were the first, as far as I know, acquisition for Varmint Guard in 2020. They acquired AAC Distributing very late in 2020. We actually found out about it, I think, on December the employees found out about it, I think December 22nd, 23rd, something like that. So the acquisition happened very late in 2020.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that recent.
Yeah. Yep. Since then, it's, Varmint Guards acquired several companies. But yeah, that was when AAC, the American Animal Control side, was bought very late in 2020. And then we moved everything kind of full force into the distribution side from that point.
Awesome.
At the point of sale, Jack, staying on that same topic, what were you guys doing annually in business, do you think?
I don't know the exact number on it. We were somewhere right up against $3.5 million at that point. So, when I started with the company, keep in mind, when I started in 2006, I was the first hire outside of the family. The goal was never, I don't think the goal was ever to build the company to the point that it got to. I was working at the time in the RV industry. I mean, Shane, you're familiar with our area. And Elkhart County is the hub for the RV industry in the world. I mean, it's where most of the trailers in the U.S. come out of. If they're not manufactured in Elkhart County or LaGrange County, odds are a lot of the parts came out of those places. It's a giant manufacturing hub right here close to us. And so I was working in the RV industry. I went into teaching. I taught for a year, realized that that's not where I wanted to be. Left the education sector, went into the RV industry only because the money was good. I mean, you work like a dog. It is not something I wanted to do forever. But unfortunately, when you're kind of in a transition in your life where you're not sure what you want to do, those college bills and the other bills don't stop coming. So you've got to do something. So I went into the RV industry, and I was actually going to go back into education. I bumped into Mike at a gas station and asked him how him and his dad were doing. Because at the time, American Animal Control was just Tony and Randy and Mike. So it was father, wife, and oldest son. And talked to Mike, and he said they were just could not keep up. Well, in my head, my plan was to go back into education and make the most of it that I could. And so I told Mike, I'm like, man, if you guys need help, I could definitely help in the summers. I figured, when I'm not in school teaching, I could help relieve some of the stress. So starting in kind of the middle of June that year, in 2006, I started riding with Mike. I would go to the trailer factory. I would work there. Just as I got done, I would call him, figure out where he was. He would pick me up somewhere that was convenient, and I would finish his route for the day with him. And just at the end of June that year, Tony called me and said, well, what do you think? And I said, man, I think it'd be a great part-time job. I mean, Tony's known me for a long time. And he said it would be if I needed part-time help. Well, hell, I figure it'd be a great full-time job then. So the first week of July in 2006 was when I started in the industry. Now, I worked for Tony prior to that. I know I don't look like it anymore, but at one point in time, I was actually in really good shape. So he owned a series of gyms, and I worked at the front desk and did some personal training for clients at the time while I was in college. Since then, I've gotten married and gotten fat, but that happens to the best of us, I think. So, but yeah, that was kind of how I started in the wildlife industry, was just by happenstance. I bumped into Mike. He said they couldn't keep up. And like I said, I had a background in trapping, and the family has known me for almost my entire life.
That's awesome.
So I want to kind of stay on that same track there and kind of go into, you said that you've worked for Tony before. And so I know I've got firsthand experience of the kind of culture that honestly you and Tony have put together at AAC Distributing. It's pretty incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture there? Tuesdays, I know every time I stop in Tuesday at lunchtime, I don't find anybody. And tell us how you think it may impact both you and your customers.
I mean, the work environment that we have here is, it's second to none. It really is. The people that I work with on a daily basis are as close to family as you could get without being blood. So, we're all treated the exact same. We definitely enjoy and take advantage of everything that we can in working here as far as the culture side of it goes. Tuesdays, we go and eat tacos. They just left about 10 minutes ago to go and get tacos. Thursday, we go to a local burger joint called Beebs and Ash. And that's where we go every Thursday. we go to lunch bare minimum 2 days a week. And then you'll have random field trips like last Friday that I'm sure you saw, where we went to Fort Wayne, ate at Black Canyon, went to Sweetwater. Everybody here is there's not a single person here that's treated like an employee. There's just not. There's there's not a single person here that I can't tell you something about that falls well outside of just being an employee. I mean, I can tell you about their family. I can tell you about their kids. I can tell you about their hobbies. I can tell you about their favorite foods, the foods that they absolutely won't eat. I mean, it goes a lot deeper than what you get a lot of places. So, we're treated great. The working environment is, like I said, it's second to none. The family's been awesome to work for. And on top of that, we're all doing something that we absolutely love doing. And every one of us that's here is given an opportunity to grow into the positions that we're in. I mean, Shane, you've met Susan and Janelle and everybody here quite a bit. Well, I mean, we're getting to the point now as far as my traveling and training goes that I'm having conflicts on almost a weekly basis on companies that want me to be in places doing things. And so, we've gotten Susan to the point now where she knows the product line in and out. I mean, there's nothing that she doesn't know about what we do. And so she's actually going to be taking over some of the traveling and training on some of the more local stuff. So she's actually, moving from her normal role a little bit and taking on more responsibilities. The overall goal here is very straightforward and very simple. It's to grow our company by helping others. That's what the driving goal here is. And when I started in this and Tony asked me to go full-time into sales, for me, I've got to have purpose in what I'm doing. I mean, I have to have a reason that I'm doing it. I'm not a salesman by nature. That's like I said, my background's in education, not in sales. I became more comfortable in the sales process by being in the field for as long as I was and doing everything that we did. But I'm not formally trained on this. And so for me to find a reason, I started listening to a lot of podcasts on, sales and training and reading books on sales and training. And for the life of me, I can't remember who it was that said it. But one of the things that really kind of resonated with me was a guy that was talking about being successful in sales. And what he said was very simple. And I mean, it's probably what I hold as my biggest driving passion with this. What he said was that if you focus on making 1,000 of your customers successful, you'll never have to worry about your own success. And that's exactly what we do. I mean, it's, you'll hear me say it over and over and over again. The training side of what we do is what kind of drives us the most. And that's because we want every single person that works with us to be more successful in the end than what they were. And that goes all the way down the chain. I mean, that starts at the top and it runs all the way down through every single person that's here. Some of them on the, the very back end that you're not going to see. I mean, you're not going to see, Janelle and Marina out doing presentations or speaking in front of people, but you are going to see me doing it. And you're going to see Susan doing it. And for us to do that successfully, we absolutely have to have that support on the back end. I can't there's a 0% chance that I could successfully do my job without Marina, Susan, and Janelle behind me. Couldn't do it. There's no way.
Absolutely. I know the firsthand, them ladies are incredible. They help me every time I walk through those doors. And honestly, every time I walk through those doors as a customer, I can attest to the culture and to how it impacts me as a customer. And so how do you think that that culture and building that kind of culture impacts your customers on the back end?
So I think that a lot of it has to do with exactly what you just said. You're not going to find, you might, I mean, we've got our customer base is pretty large, but you'll struggle to find a customer that I think just feels like a number in our system. I mean, every single customer that we talk to at a show, every single customer that calls, every single customer that Susan talks with through the website, the live chat, every single one that sends us text messages, every one of them is treated exactly the same way as what you are when you show up here. So that culture, when you have a healthy, happy culture, that's going to spill over in everything that you do. So it's very difficult for you to expect an employee to treat your customer base like their friends if they're not happy doing it. I mean, a person can only fake it for so long. I mean, there are some people out there that have faked it until they made it. But at some point in time, if you're faking it, you're going to slip up. You're going to have a bad day, and people are going to know that it's not genuine. And you're not going to find that here. And so the overall happiness that everybody here has with what we do, it spills over into how we treat every single one of our customers. And I mean, it doesn't matter if it's at a show, it doesn't matter if it's in 10 days at the NACOA convention, or if it's, tomorrow when we all get down to Tampa, or, what day it is or where it's at. Every single person that comes in contact with anybody that works here is is going to be left with the impression that they are more than simply a number inside of our system. And for us, that's huge because, we're in a space where there is alternative options for some of the products. We're never going to be the cheapest. Will not happen. We're not. So one of the things that we have to make sure that we are on top of is our customer support and our customer satisfaction and just the overall happiness of our customers with the interactions that they have with us, because we're not going to be the cheapest. And you're going to have customers who will stay with us paying the extra price because of the service that they get. And for us, we'll continue to offer that service regardless if somebody leaves and goes with another product or not, because we're not doing it to be fake. I could ramble off a list of names, that's dozens that have made the decision to go with other companies or with other products just to save a few dollars on something. And I treat them no different. And the thing with that is that, number one, is because we're genuine. I treat every one of our customers, former customers, future customers, all the same. And number two, you might not be a customer now. We may not have something that appeals to you right now, but we're not done. We will continue to evolve. We'll continue to manufacture more high quality products. And at some point in time, odds are pretty good we're going to have something that's going to meet a need that you have. And the last thing that I want is for a customer to get turned off by having a sour interaction with us and write off a product that they could be successful with just because they didn't like their interaction. I would much rather every person have interactions with us that make them want to be our customers, so that when that next product comes out and they see a need for it, they don't have any hesitation to jump on board and to work with us in that fashion.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll just say real quick that people don't buy off price typically. They buy off value. And I always say that value equals benefits minus cost.
Correct.
So, and I'll pick up something else that you talked about. Like, so your whole background is education. And you said that you weren't a sales guy. But what I put the two together, like you're selling through educating your customer.
100%.
So your background of education and teaching comes through in your line of work now. It makes it so much easier to sell. So you don't feel like a sales guy, in quote, right? You feel like you are just teaching people how to use your products and you're helping the customer solve their problem.
Right. And that's just it. I've been through portions of some of the, what a lot of people would consider some of the best sales training in the country. I haven't done it in a while, but I was probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through Cardone University. And there's great sales training out there, but I sell based off, just like you said, Jonas, I sell based off of education and factual information. I don't try to use any kind of a ploy to get somebody to buy something from us. I will tell you everything that there is to know about our product line. I'll tell you everything there is to know about how to install it, how to sell it, what you can make off of it, what the average rate is on installation, what the average time frames are. I'll help you see what the profit margins are, what they should be. But I'm never going to put down another product and tell you that our product is better than theirs. I'm never going to slander another company just because they may have taken an idea that wasn't original and decided to modify it and make it themselves. It's just not what we do. If you want to know about our products, I'll tell you everything about them. I'll tell you everything from the base materials to the powder coating, to the angles that we use, to why we do all of the things that we do. But at no point in time are you going to hear me say that we're better than this company because of this reason. I'll give you all the facts. I'll let you make the decision from there.
Yeah, and I know that's true because, like I said, you came to our facility, you gave us all the pricing structure. You can say like how the profit was on each one, how to use it, everything. So if people are looking for a price sheet, don't know how to charge for their services, reach out to Jack. That's what he's there for. Use his products. I'm going to circle back. I'm going to circle back a little bit because you said that like through the acquisitions, like relatively new for like a varmint guard. That's probably early on, like say like 2020. Were there a lot of acquisitions in the wildlife space at that point?
Not a lot of acquisitions that were made public. There are some behind the scenes stuff that happens with companies being acquired that don't get made public. There have been acquisitions that have happened for years where the company that was acquired, the name was never changed. Public perception never changed. Colors never changed. Branding never changed. Nothing ever changed. The only thing that changed was the operating systems that were driving the ship behind the scenes. There's a company out there that has done quite a bit on the acquisition side that is a giant, and a lot of people don't know it. And they're a giant because they're really good at what they do. They have phenomenal systems in place to be successful, and they go in and they acquire companies that are doing all right. They're not failing companies by any stretch, but they're companies that are running not real lean. They're companies that aren't super efficient. And so they've been going in for years. At least 7-8 years that I know of, they've been going in on the back end and acquiring these companies that have great operators, they have great leaders, but they have poor systems. And they basically go in there, they plug their system in place, and it takes off. And so, they've been at it for quite some time. But as far as the acquisitions that have been made public that have been kind of, out there for people to see, those have been more recent.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you see a trend of more wildlife companies getting sold now? Or do you, what is your thoughts on that?
Without going into too much, yes, companies.
I see the trends going up.
Yes.
And I think the wildlife companies are also creating a reoccurring revenue model so that are getting more attractive.
Yeah, 100%. 100% they are. I think a lot of wildlife guys are starting to understand more the importance of what that reoccurring revenue is. You guys in the pest world have known it forever. It's what drives pest control is reoccurring revenue. Wildlife was never about reoccurring revenue until, realistically in about the last 5 years, it's really started to become something that is being focused on. You see a lot of a lot of wildlife companies that are getting their pest control licenses a lot of them to do nothing more than rodenticide, to run bait stations, and that's it, which we did it. We ran rodenticides. For us, it made sense. You're going there, you're doing a full mouse exclusion anyways. And one of the things that's funny, one of the things I've heard pest control companies say for a long time that don't do any animal exclusion is, we want the reoccurring revenue. So we don't want to do the mouse exclusion and keep the mice out of the house because then we lose reoccurring revenue. No, absolutely false. If you're not continuing with that reoccurring revenue after you do that full mouse exclusion, you're asking for problems. Mice are prolific chewers. If I come out to a house today and I do a full inspection and I list everything that I can do to keep those mice out today, I can do all of that work. And I can guarantee you 100% a mouse is not going to get back through what I repair. It's not going to happen. I'll put my name on that, on that exclusion. I'll give you the warranty for 12 months. And I'm going to tell you that you should renew that warranty every 12 months so we can at least get that annual reoccurring. But realistically, with mice being prolific chewers, I can't fix a hole that's not there today. And so we tell all of the pest control companies that we work with, your rodenticides absolutely have to continue. Doing the exclusion will keep them from getting in right now. But if we don't control the population on the exterior, they're going to regain entry at some point in time. They're going to find another corner that is a little bit loose or another piece of wood that's not perfectly tight, and they're going to chew through that and go in. So no, if you're a pest control company and you're on the fence about doing exclusion and your concern is that you're going to lose reoccurring revenue, you absolutely will not. You have to maintain that reoccurring rodenticide on the exterior, or else you're going to have problems.
Yeah, we've actually started to tie our warranties to that fact, where we'll do a full exclusion of an entire property, and you have to have our bait stations in order to maintain a warranty on that mouse seal. They're the front line of defense, in my opinion, on that house, and what keeps the population that's attacking the foundation of that home in check. So that's really, really helped us kind of sell through on our bait stations, is by just saying, hey, listen, this is part of the project, and without it, I can't warranty or guarantee that this problem doesn't return. So,
and I was one of those guys, Jack, and I'll be honest, because I'm a pest guy. Like, I just love the reoccurring revenue. I love the model, and I didn't want to steer away from the model, and I love it. But then you see the one-time jobs that are like, oh, those are pretty nice margins on that one-time job. So I liked that fact, but I didn't want to build my business around it back then, because I just knew if I ever when I'm building this thing to acquire, like, I'm going to get less on the dollar than I would for pest control. But now that there's reoccurring revenue built into it, like, it's, again, more attractive, and why we're getting into the game.
Right. And that's, honestly, that's one of the market trends that I see happening, is that we do see more pest control companies that are starting to understand that there is value in wildlife and that there is value in exclusion, because it doesn't take away the reoccurring side. All it is you're taking that reoccurring customer that you were getting X amount of dollars out of monthly or quarterly or biannually or however your program is working. So say you've got that customer, and at the end of the year, your total on that customer is $500 for everything that you do throughout the course of the year. Sure, it's a one-time hit, but you're still going to keep getting that $500. So why not do an exclusion, throw another $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 onto that ticket, and turn that customer into a $2,500, $2,800 customer for that year? Yeah, it's just that year, but it's another, it's money you weren't getting before, and you're not losing the reoccurring side of it. Well, I mean, even say that you do, 2 a month that are $2,000. You're generating $4,000 a month. By the time you take out all the business expenses and everything else, you're going to be at half of that. I mean, that's still a large portion of at least one technician's pay for that month. So I mean, even if you're only doing a handful of exclusions a month with the guys that you have, those handful of exclusions are paying a large portion of the business expense for that month, which just adds more profit on the back end. Because it's like you said, Jonas, one thing you can't see about exclusion work is that the margins are good on it.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so I, again, hear the pest guys talk, come from the pest guys, like they want to get into more wildlife because it keeps them busier in the winter. Then you talk to the wildlife guys, like, we're going to get into pest control so we can do pest control all winter. When is the busiest season for you, Jack?
I mean, for us up here, I mean, we always slowed way down December, January, February. When I was on the road, I loved it. I mean, I loved when we started getting into, once we got out of bat season, which I focused heavily on bats the last 4 or 5 years I was on the road. And once we got out of that and it started slowing down, October starts slowing down, November starts slowing down, and you just keep getting slower and slower. I mean, my passion is hunting. So for me, it was perfect. I mean, we started slowing down right when it was time for me to start getting busy doing what I love. But realistically, man, anymore, especially with the weather patterns that we've been having, I mean, I don't know when we're supposed to be slow. January, we're supposed to be slow, but I can tell you, obviously, we're not at the end of the month yet, but we're supposed to be slow in January. And when I did numbers yesterday, we were up almost 31% year to date over last year. So I would tell you January, Jonas, but I mean, maybe next month. I don't know.
And when do you guys usually come out of this, quote unquote, again, slow season? February, March? When do you see it?
Usually starting in April is really when we usually start seeing the numbers jump quite a bit. And it was the same, when we were doing the wildlife work. Some of your raccoon calls, your baby raccoons and addicts would start coming in kind of middle of March. You start getting those early litters, but April's when it always opened wide up. And then you start getting your fluctuating weather temperatures that start driving bats back inside structures again in April. So you start getting inundated with these bat calls with bats that were making it into the structure. And then you would start to thaw and freeze because of those fluctuating temperatures. So your moles would be up and down. So then we start getting the mole calls in April as well. So April was always the month that we could pretty well bet that we were going to go from, just about a crawl to a full sprint by the end of the month. And of course, that's going to be different regionally. I mean, you're talking about where.
Yeah, we're all up north, like us three on the call.
Yeah, you look at Southwest. I mean, you look at Texas, Arizona, those areas. A lot of the South, honestly, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, you start getting into those deep South states, and from what we see on the numbers and from what the operators say that I talk to, their slowest months are July and August. It's when it's too hot for the animals to be moving and everything wants to kind of stay in the shade and stay away from activity. So I know a lot of the southern states, it's polar opposite. I mean, their hottest months are when they slow down.
Where do you guys tend to ship the most as far as like territory or state or region?
North Midwest right now. That trend is changing. I can tell you that right now. But as of where we are today, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, the Carolinas, there's a lot that goes out that direction, Pennsylvania. But like I said, with the addition to some companies that are doing some regional trainings in the South, that trend is starting to change. And that's a big part of why January has been the way that it has been this year, is because of some more training that we did late this year and early into late last year and early into this year that's taking off. It's everything is fluid. It's all changing as we go. But to date so far throughout the existence of the company, Michigan has been the number one state for product purchase. And that's because Michigan's got a huge bat population. I mean, Michigan, Indiana, Northern Ohio, Eastern Wisconsin, portions of Illinois, all have very, very large bat concentrations. And so that's really what we tend to see. I mean, when you have large concentrations of particular animals, we can see that in the products that get sold into those regions. And in the Northern Midwest, it's bats.
And so what's your number one selling product?
Ridgeguard, hands down, number one selling product. Behind that, it would be the 16 by 16, the static roof vent covers would be number two. I would say third, without actually looking at the numbers, would probably be the 30 by 30 XLs or the louvered vent guard kit. But I mean, the louvered vent guard kit, that's kind of the duct tape of our product line. I mean, you can do so much with that because it's just the base material and the trim. So it doesn't matter what the vent is, as long as it's less than 3 foot by 10 foot, you can exclude that vent with that.
Absolutely, man. So I want to, unless you got any other questions, Jonas, on that subject, I'd like to
I'll shut up, Shane.
I just want to kind of shift gears a little bit. And I want to try and tie this all back into pest as a pest control podcast, kind of involving us in the wildlife space. I want to make sure that our listeners kind of get the best of both worlds here. So in the pest and wildlife industry, we find ourselves with both residential and commercial customers kind of all over the place. You going from the wildlife space and selling mostly to our residential customer and then having to change gears and sell business to business. How was that transition for you? And what do you think your biggest hurdle or mindset change that you had to have in order to make that transition and be successful in it?
Honestly, for me, the transition was really easy. Only because what I found that worked best for residential sales for homeowners was education. That was, for me, it was sitting down with the homeowner. And like I said, the last 5-ish years that I worked with the wildlife side in the field, I worked with almost nothing but bats. And so for me, it was, my sales process was the same on every single job that I went to. It was listen to the customer, get to the house, listen to the customer's concerns, have them tell me everything that they thought was going on, have them show me around the house, start to strike up conversation with them, start to build some rapport with them. And then once I got to actually doing the inspection, I mean, you inspect enough houses and they're all very similar. A lot of times I would know what I was looking at before I ever got to the front door. I mean, the outside inspection was just a technicality, so to speak. And so for me, a big portion of it was, go outside, just make sure that I was right about everything that I thought when I pulled in, go over everything, do the inspection, get everything written up. But then it was sitting down with them and explaining everything to them as to why they're having the bat problem, why the bat got inside, how the bat got inside. It was the education process, and it was making them understand. The big thing about sales, at least from the way that I go about it, or the way that I've pretty well always gone about it, is an informed customer is the customer who's more likely to make a purchase. I mean, Shane, I'm sure you probably heard me talk about it 2 years ago at the conference here. In our own personal lives, when we're the consumer and not the service provider, we educate ourselves on everything that we buy. It doesn't matter if it's a new washer and dryer, if it's a new TV, a new appliance, if it's new furniture, a new vehicle. We educate ourselves on it. We want to learn everything there is to know about it before we buy it so that we know we're making the right decision. Well, in our industries, there's very little accurate and good information online for a homeowner to actually be able to educate themselves. There's a lot of stuff on there that they can read that's not necessarily perfect. So then it becomes our responsibility to give them that education. And so my sales process is no different here. I mean, business to business, the only thing that's different is that I'm educating a business owner on how we can help them be more successful versus educating a homeowner on how I can help their home be more safe. So for me, it was virtually seamless because the process hasn't changed. The only part that's changed about it, or the part that's the biggest hurdle, I guess, is that most of your homeowners don't go into a conversation with preconceived notions. They don't go into a conversation thinking that the way that they're doing it is the only way that it should ever be done. So that part has been probably the biggest. I mean, I would love to say that every person that I have ever talked to has been receptive of what we offer. That is not the case. We've tried a lot of different methods. I mean, from the sales standpoint, there's cold calling and there's just all of the different ways to try to make contact with customers and get those leads. And I can tell you that cold calling, buddy, that one is not my favorite. I can't tell you how many times I have been called names and sworn at and everything else on cold calls. And really the only thing we were trying to do with our cold calling was to get a product catalog email to someone. And I mean, it's a 30-second conversation. Hey, Shane, this is who we are. This is what we do. My background is in the wildlife control industry. I know you're busy. I don't want to waste any more of your time than what I have already. I would just like to email you a product catalog that you can take a look at your convenience. That's it. So that's been the hardest thing, is just the going to, shows at times and having somebody walk up to the booth and look at something that we have on display, look at Ridgeguard and flat out look at us and say, that product is absolutely pointless and all you're doing is screwing customers. I don't know what to tell you.
As somebody who sells miles of that product a year, I can tell you it's not a waste of money, and we're not screwing our customers, man.
That's been the hardest part, has been trying to figure out how do you tiptoe around somebody who's come into the conversation with the preconceived notion that what you're doing is not necessary and that all you're trying to do as a company is take someone's money. It's just one of those things that I take it personal, because that's so far from what we actually are trying to accomplish that, I mean, I don't get my tail feathers ruffled very easily, but that's one that every time they walk away, I just kind of grit my teeth and think, yeah, I guess you can't win them all.
Yeah, and I would probably just hire a VA and have them go through every single company as a wildlife company or pest control company and get their emails and then just send in the booklet anyway.
Cheat code. I can pick your brain a little more about that here, Jonas, because that would be a lot better method than what we've tried off and on in the past.
I'll see you tomorrow.
I absolutely love that approach. So, I mean, I believe sales through education is key. And I take a very, very strong stance on that. We don't, there's no scare tactics. There's no misinformation. It's educate them based on the education that I've received throughout the industry, and being open and honest about what can and will happen in certain cases tends to create that educated customer that you talked about, Jack, and creates confidence in people's business. So I agree with you 100%.
And I think that there's already urgency built in and already a scare tactic built in. Like, there's bats or there's mice in your house, let's just get them out. So
yeah, and that's just it. I mean, when you're working with homeowners, it's all you have to do is talk to a homeowner like they're a friend of yours, build a relationship with them, give them the facts, and then let them make a decision. And there again, you're not going to close every one of your jobs. I mean, not every person is going to give you the green light. Some of those are going to be people that flat out didn't expect it to cost as much as what it does. And you're not going to get all of those. But if you educate them, when they get their tax returns in March, or when they are able to save up the money. I mean, Shannon, I saw you nod your head. How many times have you heard somebody say, "Oh, I'd really like to have it done, but right now I just can't afford it." And you get that call 6 months later, and that customer says, "We've been saving for the last 6 months. We finally got enough money saved that we can do it. We'd like to go ahead and move forward with it." Or that customer that you write the quote in September, and they get their tax returns in March, and all of a sudden your phone rings, you get a message from them, and they say, "Hey, we got our tax returns back, and we've budgeted, and we've got enough money left out of our tax returns that we want to move forward with that." So, I mean, give them the facts, give them the solution, give them the price, let them make a decision. I don't lean on them. I do follow up to make sure that they don't have any questions, but I'm not calling them every week. I mean, I'll call them at a week, and I'll make sure they have my number, and I'll make sure they understand that if they ever have questions or concerns, that they can call me. And I mean, the sales objections that we hit most of the time in the industry are all pretty standard. It's going to be a price objection. It's going to be I need to talk to my spouse, or it's going to be I have another company coming out to give me a quote. I mean, those are the three biggest objections that we get. And all three of those, I mean, you can work with a technician or a salesperson in an hour and figure out how to overcome most of those objections. I mean, they're not hard objections to overcome. You know, the price objection, that one is the one that can probably be the most legitimate. The whole talking with my spouse, you can get ahead of that. If you're not talking with the decision maker, a lot of times there's going to be indicators that let you know they're not the decision maker. You can try to get ahead of that. If you're talking to the decision maker and they say that they need to talk to their spouse, it's because you haven't educated them enough in the value of what you're offering. And then I have another company coming out. I welcome that one. Please have another company come out. If you're confident in your work, you're confident in your inspection, you're confident in what you do and what you offer, you should have no concerns about another company coming out to give a second opinion. None whatsoever. I mean, Shane's a great example of it. I mean, I don't know how much of Shane's background he cares to divulge, but I know the area of operation that he started in because it was part of our coverage area. And I'm very familiar with that. And I know the details as to what that company or what that region or that office was doing. And I told Shane from day one, they are not doing what they should be doing. And Shane has came in and proven that the market that was lacking, he knew how to capitalize on.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. We went down there a few weeks ago and he ran us through his whole presentation at the door, his inspection. It was incredible.
And that's just it. And that's another thing that it's funny that you kind of mentioned that. That's another thing that I'll kind of touch on is for anybody that's newer to the industry or just getting into it, if they're pest control that's looking to go into wildlife, I've not seen another industry that has so many people willing to try to help a company be successful. And it's not just suppliers. It's not just us. It is literally the competitor that has an office 4 blocks down the street. And I think that it's one of those things where a lot of companies and a lot of operators in the wildlife and in the pest control sector understand that there will never be a single company that can service the demand. It will not exist. And on top of that, the wildlife side it's a young industry. I mean, you know, commercially, I want to say that it was in the early 1980s when Critter Control franchised. So I mean, you're looking at an industry that overall, as a recognized profession, is 40 years old. It's not an old industry, and the demand is growing. The public perception of what we do as being professionals and not just being hillbilly ditch trappers is growing. Guys who are starting wildlife companies now are going into it with a business background. I mean, they're running it like it's a business. You know, for 2.5 decades, our industry was ran like it was a hobby. And, you know, when you run something like it's a hobby, it is hard to make it a business. And now we've got younger guys like Shane that are coming into it who have been mentored by people who are highly successful. And you have other people who have ran successful businesses in other sectors who are seeing the value. And now they're coming into it knowing that there's profit to be made there and knowing that they know how to run a business. And it's no different than running. If you can run an HVAC business or an electrician business, if you can run a service business, you can run a wildlife company. It's not, you're not reinventing the wheel. The wheel exists. It's running a business. If you can service customers and you can do so successfully and honestly, you've made 80% of what you need to do. You can be educated on the rest of it.
Absolutely. I saw something the other day, or I heard something the other day. I can't remember if I saw it or heard it nonetheless. It was collaboration happens at the top and competition happens at the bottom. So when you say that you've got all of these companies that are collaborating with each other, whether that be 4 blocks away from me or whether that be 4 states away from me, I see that in our industry, and I absolutely love that about the industry. I think the pest control industry is also kind of trending in that same direction. From what I see, it's a lot of people that are collaborating with each other to make the industry a better place for ourselves and for our customers. And those that try to compete along the bottom of the line tend to go away anyway. So
absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think is going to be very obvious in the next 5 years is that you're going to see companies who are collaborating, companies who are educating, companies who are focused on quality and service. You're going to see the gap between them and the hobby business. You're going to see that gap grow drastically. When I first started in 2006, if you saw a company that was $1 million gross company, that was a company that was doing very, very well back then. Now, I mean, you can gross $1 million in this industry pretty easily doing it. But your hobby guys they're going to be guys that are going to be one or two trucks, that are going to be $180,000 to $250,000 gross revenue yearly. They're set in their ways. They've always done it that way. That's how they're always going to do it. They're not open to education. They're not open to advancement in, practices or materials or products. And they're going to keep slowly filtering themselves out.
Yeah. So let's give these, let's just say you have people who are listening that are doing $250,000, $300,000 revenue. Let's give them some tactical advice that they can go out and implement right away to grow the margins. Obviously, they can get out of the truck as fast as possible, right? Work on the business side in it. Marketing, sales, things like that. But let's give them some tactical advice that they can go run with.
First thing that I'll tell them, stop trying to learn it on your own. You are handicapping yourself by trying to teach yourself everything you can in the field. That is not the way to do it. You're going to burn 40 hours a week trying to learn what you can learn in 40 minutes by reaching out to somebody. There's some great organizations out there, but don't rely on them. And we offer education. The co offers education. Pest Daily, they're out there. Don't rely on them solely. Talk to the people in the industry. Talk to Shane. Talk to Jonas. Talk to you getting into it on the pest control side. Don't be afraid of your competition. That's the wrong approach to take. But that would be my very first piece of advice: is stop trying to learn on your own in the field. That is a slow, grueling, grinding process. When you can literally reach out to a mentor, hire a mentor. It might seem if you're somebody that's out there that's doing 150, 180, 200,000, one truck by yourself, take the next 6 months, live lean, don't spend money, put everything you can back, reach out to somebody that's already successful in the field and find out how much it's going to take for them to mentor you and pay them. It will return itself tenfold in no time at all. Take advantage of the resources that are out there that are offering the free training. Reach out to us. Go to NACO events. They're not super expensive. They're not convenient necessarily. I mean, if you're a sole operator and you're doing this all on your own out in the field, you have to shut down for a little bit. It's just part of it. At the end of the day, honestly, what it boils down to is that there's no comfort in growth and there's no growth in comfort. If you're doing what you're comfortable doing, you're going to be stale and you're going to stall. Get out of your comfort zone. Start reaching out to the people that you see that are successful that you want to model your business off of. If it takes money to learn how they're doing it, pay them.
Couldn't agree more. Shane, what do you got?
Man, I agree with Jack wholeheartedly on everything he said. I mean, I don't know how many people who are listening now will have listened to the episode that I was on previously, kind of explaining my story, but I went from sleeping in a tent in my territory to grossing $1.1 million in 2023. So and we did that in the course of less than that, 16 months. So the one thing that's different for me is that I was forced to grow a team and build a team because my territories, my businesses aren't where I live. I live in Wisconsin and I service Indiana and Michigan, northern Indiana, southern Michigan. So developing talent and investing into people around you and educating those people has really brought me a ton of success, making others better. And that's genuinely how I run my business, is that I just want to make sure that I'm doing the right things for my customers and doing the right things for my employees. And if I do that for those two sets of people, everything else takes care of itself. It really does. Invest into the people around you is really the best thing that I can put out there on top of what Jack said.
Yeah. And just invest in yourself, right? Like Jack said.
Absolutely.
You have to recreate yourself all the time. If you're not recreating yourself every 3 to 6 months, you're not growing. I'm constantly learning every single day. I'm reaching out to people who are ahead of me, like on a daily basis. Shane knows, like, I reach out to people who are doing hundreds of millions of dollars because that's where I want to be. And that's what I want to learn. So you constantly have to recreate yourself. Every 3 months, you should be a new person, because the old version of you can't go where you want, that you were trying to get to.
Yep. And I mean, another good thing about that, Jonas, is, this isn't necessarily for that single operator that's doing that 200K a year. This is for probably your next step. This is for that company that is growing and needs to start getting out of being in the field. Be modest and be humble. Identify what you're weak at. You're not great at everything. If you're listening to this and you sit back and you think, well, I can't hire somebody that's as good at sales as what I am, and that's as good at customer communication, and that's as good as, stop. You're wrong. You're just wrong. I promise you, no matter how good you are, there are people out there better than you. You can't be the best at everything that we're doing. Identify what you're the best at. Be transparent with yourself. Identify what you excel at. Identify what makes you the happiest in the things that you're doing throughout the course of the day. Focus on that and find people better than you for the rest. I mean, it's no different. It is literally no different than, I'll use an NFL team, for example. It's no different. The head coach is not the special teams coach. He's not the strength and conditioning guru. He's not the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator. He's not head of HR. He's the head coach. What he does best is find people who are better than him at what he can't do, which is why he has an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams. That's why he has those people, because they're all better than him at that. So become your company's head coach. Become the one that says, this is what I'm good at, and I'm not good at these things. So I'm going to find people who are, and I'm going to put them in those positions.
Great advice. And I'll add to that and just say, if the quarterback gets hurt, the coach isn't going to play quarterback. He's going to have a backup who's going to go play quarterback. So just keep those analogies in line. So great advice, Jack. It's awesome.
Yeah, a wise man once told me that so long as I'm out there doing the sales, I'll never have 10 people out there doing them. So that kind of stuck with me and really kind of put into perspective that I need to make sure that I need to train somebody and or bring somebody in better than me at that and get them up to speed so that I can do it again. And so I can do it again. And then they can start doing it for me so that I can build a team of people to grow to a $5, $8, $10 million company. So I think Jonas, I've seen his company inside and out so far, and I think he's done an incredible job of that. So he can probably attest to that as well.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. And I know that I'm not great at everything. Like, I have a few good skill sets. I stay in my lane. I write a list out of what I like doing and what I don't like doing, and I stay in my lane. I'm not an operational guy. Yeah, I can do it, but it hurts my head to do it. I love sales and marketing. That's my gig. So I went out and found one of the best operators out there to run it. And you'll find the people that love to do the things that you hate. They're out there. They absolutely love it.
That's one of those things that, if you're not familiar with situational leadership, if it's not something that you've ever looked into and you're listening to what's being said today, learn about situational leadership. Learn how to assess where someone is and where someone wants to be, and figure out how to guide them on how to get there. Situational leadership is one of those things that once somebody at the top understands situational leadership, it becomes a lot easier to see how far an employee wants to go and help them get to that spot. Because you two know as well as I do, not every person that you hire wants to be an all-star. Jonas, I'm sure you have guys that just want to go out. They want to show up at work. They want to go out. They want to do the spraying that they need to do for the day, hit the jobs they want to do. They want to punch out, go home and not think about it. Right. You have to have them. They have to exist for the company to work. But if you've got that guy that's showing up a half an hour early, making sure his truck's clean, he's staying a half an hour late, making sure all his paperwork's in order, he's showing initiative, you need to understand how to lead that guy and how to get that guy to that next level, and how to assess how far does he want to go. Is he somebody that wants to be, supervisor? Is that as far as he wants to go? He wants to have a couple guys that he's responsible for, or is this somebody who wants to be in your seat? Is this somebody that has the aspirations to be right up there beside you and be making decisions at that level? And knowing the difference and knowing how to lead those people to where they are trying to get can be huge. I mean, it's one of those things that once you understand it, it can catapult the way that your employees operate on a day-to-day basis.
That's great. So I'll go back to the 250,000, 300,000, 180 guys. And I see it all the time. all the time around these guys, and they're older, not always, but typically older, and they want to go sell their company. So for those young guys listening who are just starting out, doing 100,000, 150, maybe $500,000, like you're going to extract all your money while you own the business. Just know that. If you're pulling 80, 100 grand a year, that's what you're going to make throughout the next 15, 20 years, and there's fine. But just so you know, when you go to sell that thing when you're done, it's not going to be worth anything. You pulled all the cash out of it, and it was your bad for not scaling that thing. So if you guys are listening to this now and you say, hey, I want to exit this thing someday, it's your duty and obligation to scale it as fast as possible. So go out there, like Jack said, learn the skills, find the people, find the mentors, learn what you need to learn to scale as fast as possible. So when you're ready to exit, you'll get a big check in the end.
Jonas, you got to push the bomb button again for me, buddy, because that's dropping bombs right there, baby.
So I'll go back. This is the first time we used the bomb since we started this podcast, and now we use it twice in the same show.
One of the things, if you're not somebody that has a clear vision of what your exit looks like, start painting that picture. It is never too early to start thinking about what that looks like. You've got to draw a roadmap to get there. If your goal, if you're out there right now and you're that 180, 200, 250, 300, and your goal is to exit at 5 million, 8 million, 10 million, you need a roadmap. You need to lay that out. You don't wake up tomorrow doing the same thing that you did today, which is the same thing that you did yesterday, and think that by just doing the same thing over and over is going to get you a different result. That's not going to work. I mean, if your goal is $10 million gross revenue, you need to figure out how you're getting there. And there's not just one way. I mean, Jonas, the way that you get there is going to be different than the way that Shane gets there, and that's going to be different than the way that everybody else gets there. There are 100 ways to get there in this industry at doing that. And there's one way to not get there. And the one way to not get there is to not be clear on how you're getting there. I mean, you've got to have that roadmap. And if you don't know what that looks like, and you don't know what's important on getting there, there are plenty of resources out there that can get you there. And if you want to know on, how to start doing business evaluations, how to really start seeing what's your company worth, the one that I would recommend is listen to the Boardroom Buzz. I mean, go on there, listen to Paul. I mean,
yeah,
good advice, start at the top.
We'll be with those guys tomorrow. It's fantastic. That's all they talk about is acquisitions every day, all day long. That's what the Potomac Group does.
And just like you said before, Jonas, or it may have been you that said it, Shane, but if your goal is to exit at 10 million or 15 or 20 or whatever it is, find someone that's there. Find somebody that's gotten to where you want to be and learn from them. I mean, we've talked about it here. Tony and I talk about it off and on. If you're a company that wants to do $100 million, don't talk to a company that's doing $250,000 and think they can give you the advice to get to $100 million. If they're not there, they don't know how to get there. They can't tell you how to get there. If you want to be a $100 million company, talk to the people running a $100 million company.
And I was on that phone call last week.
And that's just it. And the reason that you'll get there is because you're not shy about it. You know that they're already there.
I picked up the phone and email and found his email and cold emailed him and then cold called him and he answered and sat on the phone with me for an hour and a half.
Right. And I can tell you that if you would have emailed him and you would have cold called him and he wouldn't have answered, you would have moved to the next one. And you would have found the next $100 million guy that you could talk to, and you would have done the same thing. And you would have done it until you got what you were looking for. And that's the difference. That's what will put you at $100 million that, someone else won't do.
And don't think that those people are out of your ballpark, right? I've been that guy. I was working for another franchisee and was intimidated to talk to guys that were heads of, $5, $10, $20 million companies. And I found out very quickly that those are the guys that are the easiest to talk to and want to help you. So don't be afraid to ask people. If you're in that $180,000, $250,000, $500,000 mark and you just want to talk to the next step up, reach out to me. I'm the next step up, I guess, is that $1 million mark. If you want to get past that, talk to Jonas, reach out to him. I know AAC is offering a ton of management classes and leadership style classes. So reach out to Jack. I'm sure there'll be something on here that says how you can get in touch with all of us. So just don't be afraid to reach out and try and talk to people. Jonas wasn't in one day got to talk to $100 million man. So
Yeah. I mean, and you guys, you couldn't be more correct. I think at one point in time, we've probably all been there, looking at somebody that's super successful and thinking, man, like that guy wouldn't spend 30 seconds talking to me. They're out there. I mean, those guys are out there. But I think there's a lot more of them out there that would be more than willing to sit down and talk to you. I mean, this is out of the pest and wildlife control, but my wife works seasonal work out west with horses, and the ranch that she was working on the last 2 years, the family that owns that ranch is out of Denver, Colorado. The ranch itself is in Wyoming, and they have been uber successful in commercial real estate. And I sat down with, the one who owns all of it, and him and I sat there and had, a 25-minute long conversation. This is a man that I've only ever met twice in my life. That is worth multiples of billions of dollars into the, I don't know. He's north of $10 billion in net worth. And I mean, you sat there and you talk to him just like he's anybody else. I mean, the stories that he shares are no different than the stories that Shane and I would talk about. Just because they're worth more, just because what they're doing has a higher number in front of it, doesn't mean that they're not people. I mean, we're all living very similar lives, especially in this industry. And it's just because they're doing more money than what you are, you have way more in common with them than what you think.
Awesome. I'll have one more question for you, Jack, and then I'll let Shane wrap it up. Is it harder to go from pest to wildlife or wildlife to pest?
I think for a lot of people, if you want to go full on into wildlife, it's harder for a pest control operator to do that. Just because there's a lot involved with wildlife. It's a lot of different animals. There's a lot of different processes and capturing and removing. The exclusion process is a lot different. From the animal standpoint, looking into pest control for a lot of years looked like, you hop out of a truck, you grab a spray wand, you run around a house and you spray chemicals on the house, you jump back in your truck, you go to the next one. For me, from the wildlife standpoint, if I'm there and I'm trying to figure out how an animal's getting in, especially if you're in an area that has some of the animals that I personally found more problematic, which was something like your red squirrels and your flying squirrels. I'm up on a 3-story roof. I'm belly crawling. I'm using ladder hooks and everything else to get to where this flying squirrel went in, on the peak of the roof, 3 stories up. And then I'm trying to figure out how to get back down off of that roof safely. So for me, it was always, the wildlife always seemed like it was a more difficult, more in-depth type game. Until you're knee
deep in cockroaches, or you're playing with a whole house full of bed bugs.
Yes, like I said, from what I always saw in pest control to us local, because we don't see, when you're in the wildlife, when you're in your truck and you're driving around and you see, you roll up beside one of the local pest control companies, what you see is the hose reel.
This is what I asked the question. I love the debate part.
Right. You see the guy there with the wand and he's spraying everything and he's getting back in his truck. What you don't see is the guy in full hazmat that's doing a heat treatment on, a bed bug infestation or a German roach infestation, you don't see those guys because they're inside. What they're doing, I've got no interest in that. None whatsoever. I have a ton of respect for the ones that do that. For me personally, the wildlife was easier. I am not a bug guy. I'm not saying that I'm scared of bugs. I'm just telling you that I would rather do a lot of other things than cockroaches and bed bugs or, spiders in a crawl space. Nope. I'm good.
Like say you walk up to a hornet's nest or you walk over a blackjack nest underground. It's like, you're not wearing a hazmat suit, bee suit. It's brutal. Let me tell you.
I hate needles. I have a phobia of puncture wounds. I can cut myself and be fine, but don't poke me. And so, the sting is the sting. That part is, it hurts, but the puncture, I don't know what it is about being punctured by a needle or by a stinger. I'm not a fan. I can't do it.
Excellent. Yeah. That's why we have customers, right? So
100%. Yes. Jonas, if when you get operating down here in Northeast Indiana, don't worry about knocking my door. Just call me and tell me how much it is when you're going to be there.
All right, buddy. It'll be soon. I promise.
So good, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Jonas, for allowing me this platform to kind of get on here and really talk about what I love doing in wildlife and just the friendship and mentorship. Jack, same to you. I appreciate your mentorship and the atmosphere that you've created at that company. I really only have 2, maybe 3 more questions for you. And the first one is how can your products help the pest control industry? Give me like 3 products that every pest control guy should be using to help grow their business.
Very first one, if you're in pest control, the very first thing I'd recommend is critter caps. Easiest product that we have to install. Super, super simple. They go into vinyl corners on vinyl sided homes. They're not expensive at all. The profit margins on them, realistically, I would say that you're 4x, 5x on material cost on those. And it takes virtually no skill at all to install them. So that would be the number one, would be critter caps. If you're servicing homes that are vinyl sided, which if you're servicing homes, you're servicing vinyl sided homes. I mean, you just are. If you're servicing vinyl sided homes and you're not using them, you're leaving money on the table. The next one would be probably foundation vent covers from the pest control side. If you're in a coverage area where you have very many foundation vents, it's one of those things that is another one that's super easy to install. Doesn't take a lot of skill to do so. And they're fantastic covers. They're 2-piece covers. You can pop them off to service the vents real easy on and off. From a pest control standpoint, the next one that I would say I would probably recommend for right now, this will change coming up, but for right now, I would say maybe the bathroom fan vent covers. They're a pretty straightforward cover that you can offer customers that there again doesn't add a lot of expense, but does add some needed protection. Birds and vents, people think birds and vents are really not that big of a deal, but here's the thing. If you live in an area that has very much seasonal influence, where you have lake homes that are not visited year round, in our area, we're in a heavy lakes area. One of the things that we have seen and that it does happen is everybody thinks birds and vents not a big deal until that bird gets in that vent and nests in that vent in April, and homeowner comes up the end of May and goes to turn that vent on, and the nesting is so compacted inside of that bathroom fan vent that the blades don't turn. And now they just burned up a $400 bathroom fan vent that is ran through the floor cavities to an exterior wall. That bird, that's not a big deal, just cost you thousands.
Wait to get bird bites.
Yep, and bird mites and everything else. As to where a cover that the homeowner could have paid $75 for, $80 for, could have saved all of it. So I would say right now, I would go critter caps, foundation vent covers, and bathroom fan vent covers. The crawl space access doors are another one that's super easy. A lot of ground level stuff. I know a lot of pest control companies that are just kind of getting their feet wet are not looking at adding the liability of getting on the roof yet. But know that there are products out there that you can do from the ground that are still going to generate really good margins.
Great. How can people get in touch with you to get a hold of those products or get some training on them?
Yeah, super simple. As far as getting a hold of me, you can reach out to me direct on my cell phone, which is 574-518-4843. I'll make sure that you guys have that information. Email address is jack.searls@aacdistributing.com. You can go to the website, fill out a website registration. You can fill out a training request form. You can fill out a form for general information, and that's aacdistributing.com. I mean, we really try to be very, very available. If it's after hours and you don't feel like sending me a text message, you can go online and you can use the live chat online. You can talk to Susan about whatever it is that you're looking for. So getting a hold of us is really pretty simple.
Yeah, we'll drop all your links in the bio too. So, and
then lastly, I'm just going to steal a play out of Jonas's playbook here. I want to ask you, man. Give me 2 business books that maybe have made an impact on you that you've read, or podcasts that maybe you've listened to. I'd love to hear those because I'm getting into Audible now.
Podcasts I touched on before. If you're not listening to the Boardroom Buzz, it is as good as it gets in this industry. I'm going to go a little bit, for you guys, it won't be a little bit off, but for some listeners, it may be a little bit off. Building culture is a huge thing. I mean, if you're going to run a successful business, you have to have you have to have customer retention, but you also have to have employee retention. Growth will get stalled if you're constantly training new people. I mean, it's tough to grow when you don't have experienced staff. So a book that I would recommend, and I mean, I know both of you have seen it recommended in other places, The 5 Love Languages. Read it, learn it, understand it. use it in your day-to-day life. It's going to be more than just for your employees. It can be for
wife, kids, everyone. Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, another great one, that just from a personal growth and understanding life standpoint. But I'll leave it at those. I would say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the 5 love languages as far as books. And then, Boardroom Buzz is one that I would say is probably at the top of the list as far as business podcasts go so far.
I think that we'll see a live Boardroom Buzz this weekend, I'm sure, right?
I would certainly suspect that we will. I have a question for you though, Jonas.
Sure.
So, and for you, Shane, just to kind of turn this around on you two a little bit. Jonas, what do you see as trends in the pest control industry in the coming 5 years?
Ooh, that's a good one. What I have noticed with this year, a great question, is that the bugs are staying longer up north, like coming north and staying here longer. I see that as a big trend, and the market's actually was up 18% over last year. So in all the other service industries, whether that's landscaping, mowing services, all those have been down 12 to 18%, and pest control actually went up 18%. So it's trending in the right direction. Hopefully it stays that way. As far as the business goes, again, I feel like there's a lot of people getting out of the industry. A lot of baby boomers are all retiring. And so I feel like there's going to be a lot of acquisitions happening pretty heavily in the next 5 years. So if you guys aren't looking at those, keep your eyes open.
And what do you see on the side of regulatory changes? Do you see anything coming down the pipeline that you think is going to be highly detrimental that you're going to have to, really shift gears to overcome? Or do you think that a lot of that's going to be kind of headed off at the pass?
So a lot of that stuff's already coming down the pipeline now. So kind of just wait and see what happens. We got some information within the past few weeks. Again, they actually haven't made it a law yet. So we'll just kind of wait and see what happens. But it's definitely going to change. Like California is the first one who started the trend, right? Can't use any rodenticides. Go ask someone over there though. Like, how's it going? Like, oh yeah, we can't control nothing. In a way, it's not bad for us either though. Like there's always going to be more and more work. So if that's what they're going to do to us, like it's not a bad thing at the end of the day. And we'll just have to pivot and adapt, and we'll make it work as a industry as a whole.
Right. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to ask you that question, was because I know that somebody that's young, somebody that's aggressive, somebody that's forward thinking like you, it's not going to take you long to think of how to pivot and adapt and adjust to that. But if you're an older operator, you're set in your ways and those big changes come, that's going to be tough.
Like even when you're doing your business planning workshop, which you should be doing yearly, is like, hey, what are the watch outs? And that's one of our watch outs every single year. What could be detrimental to our company? And that's obviously one of them. Like the market could shift and like, okay, well, we have to pivot. What are we going to do?
Shane, same for you in wildlife. 5 years, what do you see changing?
I think it's happening right before our eyes. I think, Jonas and I are collaborating for this exact reason. And it's that our customers and our industry is demanding that they talk to one person or one company that wants to do it all. They don't want to have to go to 3, 4, 5 different places. So I think that over the next 5 years, you're going to either see people transitioning into doing both pest and wildlife, or they're going to get left behind, in my opinion. You may have some really good companies that continue to be around, but I think you're gonna find that most companies are going to have to offer both services because that's what's going to be demanded by our customers in our industries. So I think that's the biggest change coming through. But I don't see the industry going anywhere. I see it just continuing to grow. So
yeah, and we got AI coming, so that's going to be a big change for everyone as far as answering phones, sales, like those outbound calls you're talking about, Jack. Like that's not going to be you anymore. That's going to be AI generated sales calls. Like that's just where it's already headed.
Yeah, and I think a lot of SEO type stuff and customer lead generation, stuff like that, I think that AI is going to play a huge part in a lot of that coming up. So
yeah, so that's why just hanging out with the top people in the industry and learning what they're doing and what's coming down the pipeline is very important to your business as well. So you can catch those trends before they happen. And it's like the .com boom. If you're ready for it, you can make a lot of money.
Yep. Jonas, I don't know what episode it was on, but I remember listening to it recently that someone had said one of the biggest things you could be doing right now to get ahead of AI is to just be gathering data. Record your calls, record your conversations, record everything.
Jonathan Potosnik,
that's exactly what it was. Yep. I think that's incredible for every listener on here to hear, is that you should be gathering as much of that information and recording as much as you can legally anyways, so that you can, once that AI hits, that you have enough of a data set to make a difference in your company.
Cool. Well, you guys brought a lot of knowledge today, and this was a lot of fun. Like, I'm really happy with this one. Like, it was probably one of my favorite ones. Like, this is really, really cool. I appreciate you guys for being here and taking the time to spend with us and our listeners and giving them valuable information.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation from both you and Shane and having me on. I'm more than willing to sit down and talk our industry, anytime that you guys feel like it. So,
well, when we get these new products come out, we're gonna have to jump back on, even if it's for 20 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Not a problem at all. Fingers crossed. One of them, we were really pushing hard for the launch date on one of them to be at NACOA. Unfortunately, I think we're going to miss by about a week.
We'll get you back on for sure.
Okay. I look forward to it, guys. Again, thanks for everything. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to what the future holds for the industry, and, especially for two guys like you that are motivated and that are passionate about it.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.